his wife was a student of mine as well. And so anyway, glad that they're here for sure. And I knew Pete. And I got to tell you, I was definitely pulling for y'all once you got into that regional and then into the 16 and so forth. I'm sure all of us that were associated with small town teams were hoping the best for you. When Mike called, he told me that he was going to write, or he had written a book about these events of 62, 63, and he wanted to know if I would read the book, and if I liked it, would I endorse it. And well, I'd just written this particular book myself, and I knew how hard it was to write a book, and I said, sure, send it, and we got over the internet, and I started reading it, and I really couldn't stop. And when I got to the last page, and I knew the outcome, but I was still pulling for you against, but I was sad when the book ended. I wanted to go on, and I was thinking, I want to know what are these guys doing. I'm sure they turned out pretty good, because you can't do these things on a basketball team and not go ahead and apply that to the rest of your life. And I said, I wish I would get to know those guys and the characters in the community even. I wish they were still here, the ones that were instrumental in those years of hiring him and encouraging or discouraging him, as the case might have been, in certain cases. But most of those are gone now. But fortunately, and the reason is the way Mike paints the characters, you feel like at the end of the book that you know the players, you know a lot about them, and you like them, and these characters in town, and Jim, the principal, and Pete, and particularly Pete. I mean, half the book is Pete. I've already told a lot of people, I won't tell you the stories, you're going to have to buy the book. But just his early life and how basketball and Joe Dean really saved him, because he had it tough growing up. But the sports thing, and then to think about this, I mean, it just so, I really would like to tell you some stories, and I've told a lot of people stories about this book and about Pete and singing like Sinatra and things like that. That just were amazing, and so forth. I won't go further, because but I could stay on forever about the way that Mike has drawn up the characters. But I was fortunate last night to spend a few hours with most of that team, and I was right. These guys turned out to be good guys, and congratulations on all that, and keep it going. Joe Todrank, a friend of mine that played a lot of sports with, and we've stayed friends for a long time, played in Holland years ago. I knew he would enjoy this thing. He was mentioned in the book as coach of Monroe City when they lost a game to Monroe City that kind of helped them a little bit in a way. But I knew Joe would love it and love to see his name in the book. And so I didn't ask permission on Mike. I knew he'd want to buy the book anyway, just because his name's in it. And he won, he won the game. And but so I said, if you could, why don't you send me something and I'll pass it on. So here's what Joe sent me. He said, I don't know if you want to use any of this, but this is what came to my mind about Ireland. The Monroe City game in 62-63 was early in the season, and a couple things from memory. Pat Sheeter was still on the JV team. and he became a big part of their stretch run. We know that. The Spuds got behind by 16 at halftime, but I got out-coached badly by Pete in the second half, and even though Ireland didn't lose that game, and Ireland didn't really lose that game, they just ran out of time. Ireland, the community, had a very good semi-pro baseball team, and their team was all homegrown boys of summer. When you played Ireland, you could expect two things. One, it was going to be a very competitive baseball game, and two, when the game was over, there'd be cold beer. He said Ireland can always be remembered as making Jasper greater. When Ireland and Jasper consolidated, the only name change was Greater Jasper School Corporation. Well, that one's already been taken tonight, but I wanted to read it anyway. So the book has the same feel as the book Hoosiers, the movie Hoosiers. But I want to tell you there are a lot of basic differences between the book and movie Hoosiers, and I'm really hoping that this book can be made a movie. I think it would work. But you got to understand that the movie Hoosiers was based on a true story. Now, be careful whenever you hear about movies that are based on a true story. That's the same as saying this stuff's not true. You got a movie out there right now called The Butler. Now, the truth about The Butler is that there was a black man who was a butler for 5 presidents. Now, the rest of it's all made up. He didn't have a son killed in Vietnam or anything like that, but, you know, it makes a good movie. Well, the same with the Hoosiers. Wonderful movie, and all that, and not to take anything away from Milan, but there were 2 things that happened that were true in that book and movie. One, a small Indiana high school team won a state championship. And the second thing that was true was that hello, somebody from Milan. You can't trust, I mean, the NRS, they got something going. They're listening to everything we say now. But now, there was a Jimmy-like character named Bobby Plump who held the ball and then took the last shot, and they beat a big school. Those things are all true, and it was wonderful, and Milan had a great time. But what was not true about it was that this was not a surprise team. They were in the Final Four the year before. It was not a school where 7 guys tried out for the basketball team because nobody liked it. Half the school tried out for the team. There was no Gene Hackman character. Their coach was Marvin Wood. He was 24 or 25. He hadn't been kicked out of any university for whatever it was Gene Hackman was kicked out of for. It wasn't in 1952 either. It was in 1954. And they didn't beat South Bend Central. They beat Muncie Central. So, but beautiful story. This one is a book about true events. This is not based on a true story. This is it. This is what happened. And it happened here. Pete Gill probably was not crazy. Or was he? We'll never know. But my take on it is he was crazy with belief and enthusiasm. That's what set him apart. That's what made him look crazy. He believed when he rolled into town in that old beat-up car with his crumpled up clothes and his tie was always crooked. By the way, those skinny ties are coming back in, guys. I hope you kept those things. And a cigarette. But he came in believing that they were going to have a good team. Everybody said we're going to win 5 games. But he said, we're going to win the sectional, we're going to win the regional, we're going to do what Milan did 8 years ago. Now this is where what Mike wrote in this book and what my book do to come together. Because my book is on point, 4 steps to better life teams. Now we all are parts of life teams. We're born into one, we end up having our own most of the time. We're on little sports teams as you were. We're on business teams together, family, church, community, all sorts of life teams. And to have successful life teams, the first step of the 4 is to have an enthusiastic belief in a mission or purpose. And this was Pete's strength. That's the first thing that he started with, enthusiastic belief in a mission. Now, I want you to understand the power of enthusiasm and enthusiastic belief. We all know a man. We know him, he doesn't know us necessarily, who has made millions of dollars with one particular talent, and that's enthusiasm. He was a college coach and did pretty well as a college coach. Well enough that he became an NBA coach, but just lasted 1.5 years with the Detroit Pistons, and they cut him off. That was 1979 when ESPN was just starting out. He got behind the microphone and started talking about something that he believed in enthusiastically, which was basketball and people. And he's made millions of bucks now, continuing to do that the rest of his life and speaking all around the country. I'm talking about Dick Vitale, baby. You know, that's the only talent he has. Got a face for radio. The second step is that you have to show on a consistent basis that you care for your team, for your players, for your workers, for your family, for your neighbor. You've got to show that. And Pete demonstrated that daily. They all know. Now, there were times they wondered, you know, I don't think he cares the way he's killing us, but he cared. And you know that, and he passed that on, and you all cared for one another as well. The third step is that you have to provide an environment for growth, for getting better. Everybody wants to get better. And Pete had his different ways. He got guys better shape than ever before or since. And he put such an emphasis on that from the very start, before they ever played anything with the ball. He pushed them to be in condition. And then his motivational ways are very unique and different, whatever that took. Walking home after a game, taking off your pants and doing the underwear deal, whatever it was, he helped these guys to get better, to grow, and to mature.